Vidhammer Fantasy.
Welcome back to Vidhammer. I'm Spudlow, bringing you another battle report, this time round 2 from the April tournament at Darkside Comics in Sarasota, Florida. This is a 2,500 point engagement between me playing the Skaven up against the Ogres. I'm going to give you a quick rundown of the list that I use for the second and third game since I wasn't actually playing in the first. But I'm rolling with a Grey Seer, as usual. Talisman of Preservation is the only thing he's got on him this time. I also have the Warlord with the Fellblade, not on a Bonebreaker or on a Warlitter. He only has the Fellblade, and he's out there to do his little chop sauce action and probably get killed in the process. Plague Priest, level 2, on the Plague Furnace with the Dispel Scroll and the Opal Amulet. That worked out okay for me last time, so I'm taking it. Gives the 4+ ward save on the first wound only. Then I've got my Mobile Artillery guy, Warlock Engineer level 1 with the Doom Rocket and Energy Condenser to help generate some extra dice. Always nice to have a little bit of a head start in the magic phase, especially for Skaven. You've got some awesome magic you can use if you have the die to do it. Chieftain BSB with the Obsidian Lodestone, so he's got Magic Resistance 3. It's been a little while since I actually made the voiceovers for the reports and stuff. I don't think I remembered that my BSB actually had that. I remember when I made the list, I made it with the understanding that I was going to be putting him in with the Storm Vermin and throw at least the Warlord in there, if not, the Grey Seer as well, to give them a little more safety from magic attacks and things that might be targeted directly at the Grey Seer or in particular against the Warlord. But hey, there he was. For actual units, I've got the Storm Vermin, 25. It's not as many as I usually roll, but I'm trying to do a few other things and basically have more elements that I can do damage with rather than going the all eggs in one basket type deal. 25 Storm Vermin, the Banner of Eternal Flame, and a Warp Fire Thrower team. So they're the big fire dudes. I've got 2 blocks of 50 slaves. I've been running a couple of blocks a couple of times now, and I do like having more than just one big slave block out there. Skaven really need to pick the battles, and more slave units help you do that. I've got a unit of 26 clan rats with shields, mainly to be the bunker for the Grey Seer, or possibly if you've got something where you need flaming to go one direction and you need more of a punch to go another direction, then you can throw the Warlord in with that clan rat block. He's got the Fellblade, so at least you can get something decent out of it. See how it goes. 25 Plague Monks with the Banner of Verminous Scurrying, so they can march triple speed once, but they're going to take damage. Again, it's not as many Plague Monks as I've been running with before, but I wanted to have more points to actually do stuff, most notably to be able to take the Warlord with the Fellblade. Then I've got 2 units of Giant Rats, the Redirectors, try to get out there and do some stuff. The Hell Pit Abomination, Sweet Lovin', as usual. The Doom Wheel, and both Warp Lightning Cannons. Since this tournament is not comped, I went ahead and went Hell Pit, Doom Wheel, 2 Warp Lightning Cannons. The Swedish comp score would eat the bejesus out of that, but since we're not Swedish comping this one, it's okay. So round 2 for me, it's actually round 1, but round 2 in the game, and here it is.
Our scenario is a meeting engagement variation with some crazy magic stuff added in. Each magic phase, after power and dispel dice are rolled for and channels have been made, the players roll an additional die for every one that they have in their pool. And on a 6, your opponent gets an additional die. So if you have 7 power dice and your opponent has 4 dispel dice, then you roll 7 dice and give any 6s to your opponent, who rolls 4 dice and gives any 6s to you. There are also 3 bonus battle points for killing an opposing caster, and 2 more for having banners in your opponent's deployment zone. Extra scenario points are given for controlling terrain features, up to a maximum of 5. I won the roll for board edge and elected to set up on the right side of the table. I also have to deploy my entire army first and roll for reinforcements, hoping to God that my Furnace and Plague Monks both manage to end up on the table. Luckily, both of them do, but one of my cannons a slave block, some giant rats, and my engineer are all stuck making a sandwich. I put my line down, doom wheel at one end and help it at the other, with some giant rats close to it to get in front of it if needed. For the main blocks, I've got the plague unit on the upper right, then my bunker, one slave block, and the storm vermin at the bottom. I put the Grey Seer in with the clan rats, planning on putting them into the building. The warlord goes with the storm vermin, and plague priest with the plague unit, of course. Now the ogres roll for reinforcements, and I catch a break here, as he has some of his best strengths held in reserve, including a unit of 7 Iron Guts with the Dragonhide banner, 4 Mournfang cavalry, and a Tyrant with the Sword of Anti-Heroes, a Talisman of Preservation, and the other Trickster's Shard. It makes me regret not putting my units closer to the center, but I certainly didn't expect that to happen. For the ones that make it on the board, he has a unit of 10 bulls that he puts towards his center, with 2 units of 4 lead belchers below, and the Thunder Tusk and Iron Blaster above, along with a single Saber Tusk that's just beyond the upper forest. For characters, he has a Bruiser BSB with the Dragon Helm and the Crown of Command, and a level 2 Butcher with the Hellheart that both go in with his bulls. In spell generation, his Butcher gets Bone Crusher and Troll Guts, and I'm not too worried about Troll Guts this game since I've got the Flaming Banner on the Storm Vermin. For my side, the Engineer takes Warp Lightning, of course, the Plague Priest gets Wither and Vermintide, and my Grey Seer ends up with Scorch, Death Frenzy, Blessed with Filth, and Cloud of Corruption. I win the first turn roll, and with no charges, the Doom Wheel and Hell Pit make their first moves out. I move the rest of the lineup as much as I can, wanting to take advantage of his reduced line while I've got a chance. My first magic phase is 5 versus 5 after the scenario effects. I use my first 3 for Scorch on the Bulls, which he's unable to dispel despite throwing all 5 dice at it. In the end, it does a few wounds, but I don't remember exactly how many. Then I use the last 2 dice for Death Frenzy on the Storm Vermin, and I know it's a bit early, but I'm thinking I should take advantage of the dice while I have them, since I might not have a good advantage later given the scenario. For shooting, the Doom Wheel fires into the closest Lead Belcher unit, killing off 2 and putting a single wound on the 3rd. Then the Warp Lightning Cannon shoots for the Ogre Bulls, and this is another opportunity to take advantage of those wonderful multiple wounds, but it only ends up nicking one guy at strength 2 and fails to wound. My opponent is nice enough to let me put my reserves onto the board late. I'm not sure where his reinforcements are going to go, so I put my second slave block on the upper end since his Iron Guts might come on behind the forest, and I put the Engineer in with them. The second cannon and giant rats also go up at the top. We also do my end of turn effects late, but the Warlord doesn't take a wound from the Fellblade, but the Storm Vermin do lose 5 to Death Frenzy. Cameron starts out with his reinforcements and brings the Iron Guts in on the bottom side, where they square up against the Doom Wheel, and the Mournfang also go towards the bottom, which doesn't bode particularly well for me since the Storm Vermin don't have nearly enough to hang with those guys. But we are playing those rocks as impassable terrain, so at least he has to get around his other units before he can get to me. On the upper end of the board, the lone Saber Tusk moves in to redirect my Plague unit. Always nice to have one of your best blocks held up by 21 points, but I need to have a strategy to deal with that. The Bulls stay back so the Tyrant can move into the unit, and it's over to Magic. His Magic ends up 7 versus 4. He uses the first 3 for Bone Crusher on the Warp Fire Thrower, which I let go since I can't let him get his bubble regen out. So it hits the Warp Fire Thrower and only ends up doing a single wound, but that was all it takes. His remaining 4 dice go for Troll Guts, and a bit of a high roll, but I'm just able to match it and stop that with my dice. In shooting, the Iron Blaster shoots for the Plague Furnace and hits, but the Plague Priest manages to save the wound thanks to his Opal Amulet, and the Furnace only ends up taking 1 wound. Then the Stone Thrower off of the Thunder Tusk aims for the Plague Furnace, but it drifts onto the house where his X lives, as the Bolt Thrower does a single shot It misses, and lead belchers take out 5 of the storm vermin. Now it's back to me, and I have the storm vermin charge the lead belchers. Gotta get them into combat while there's still some left. Since the warlord is in there with the Fellblade, I'm not really worried about him being countercharged by the Mournfang or the bulls. He'll get to put a nice beating down before he dies, so it looks like a profitable trade from my perspective. I have the Plague unit charge the Saber Tusk as well. I just need to get that thing out of the way, and I know it has to overrun, so I actually aim the Hell Pit out in front of it, as well as some of the giant rats to keep the overrun in check. Down at the bottom, I try to get the Doom Wheel out of the Iron Guts charge arc, but it comes up just a bit short. See you next game. The one thing to note from this round is what I do with my slaves. I put the clan rats into the house, which is fine, but then I move up the slaves to cover the flank of my storm vermin. Seems like a good idea to me at the time, but just remember that. Magic ends up 3 versus 2, and I use all 3 of my dice to put Blessed with Filth on the storm vermin. In shooting, the Doom Wheel fries into the Iron Guts and kills 2 and puts a wound on a 3rd. Then I do trademark shot and blow up my first Warp Lightning Cannon. Then the second goes after the Thunder Tusk and manages to get a hit at strength 6, but doesn't wound. For our first combat, the Warlord with his Fellblade and the Storm Vermin managed to kill off all the Lead Belchers, and I need a 10 to make the overrun into the Bulls, but I don't pull it off. That's okay, Fellblade is waiting. The Plague Furnace takes out the Saber Tusk and impacts and overruns into the giant rat unit. At the end of the turn, the Fellblade doesn't hurt the Warlord, but the Storm Vermin lose 1 to Death Frenzy. That I can live with. Now comes the Ogre charges, and you remember those slaves that I moved up? Yeah, he charges the Thunder Tusk into them. That's gonna make my Warlord and his Fellblade always strikes last. Yeah. Bulls charge the Storm Vermin since they don't have much to fear now, and the Iron Guts go after the Doom Wheel. I've played against the Thunder Tusk before. I just didn't give it enough respect this game, and it's gonna cost me. Thanks to some marvelous generosity, the Magic phase ends up 8 versus 9. And knowing that he's down on dice, he uses 6 for a shot at Troll Guts and gets Irresistible Force, or the Bubble Regen. The only good side to it is that he loses both of his spells in the backlash, so as soon as the regen wears off, I won't have to worry about it anymore. And it's not so bad since the Storm Vermin do have the Flaming Banner. In shooting, the Iron Blaster takes another shot at the Plague Furnace, but rolls a misfire and cracks, reducing it to a rather expensive chariot. Now we do the combats. The Iron Guts take the Doom Wheel down to a single wound before it runs 12 inches, which just isn't quite enough to get to safety. In the central combat, his Tyrant takes out my BSB and a few Storm Vermin. The Warlord takes a couple of wounds, but ends up alive, but he's only in contact with his BSB. So he takes out the character, but that's all he gets to do. The rest of the Storm Vermin manage 4 wounds before 2 more go down to stumps. The Ogres end up winning the combat by 5, and without a BSB anymore, I end up failing the break test. But at least I got Snake Eyes for my fleeing distance. Good job. They're caught, and they're dead. Then there's the Thunder Tusk that kills some slaves, but who cares, because they're slaves, and they're steadfast. On turn 3, Sweet Lovin has a professional disagreement with that Thunder Tusk, and decides to work it out face to face. I'm just glad he's fired up. The Doom Wheel manages to rally as well, and I try to get the upper end of the line around the house to help support the Hell Pit, or at least watch the action. Magic this time is 11 versus 7. I use the first 3 dice for Blessed with Filth on the slaves, figuring they might be able to put some wounds on the Thunder Tusk if they've got poison attacks. But he didn't like the sound of that, and I rolled pretty low, so he rolls 3 and gets the Dispel. Then I go for Warp Lightning into the Lead Belchers and kill off a guy, but they pass the panic test. Next up is Wither on the Bulls, and he tries to dispel it, but with his caster dead, he fails to get the dispel. I use the remaining dice for Scorch on the freshly withered bulls, so I'm wounding on 3s. And I roll 8 1s and 2s out of 9 dice. That's how awesome I am. Then for shooting, I do some more awesomeness and hit the Iron Blaster with my cannon at strength 2 and fail to wound. Then I have to restrain for the Doom Wheel, and I was expecting it to blow up, but it didn't. It restrained. We only have the 1 combat, and Sweet Lovin manages to get 5 impact hits where I need a 4+, so naturally I only wound with 1. Sweet Lovin also decides to feed this round and doesn't do any wounds. I lose 5 slaves, and in the end I turn out winning only by 1, and he's able to pass the break test. More ogre charges, with the bulls going into the flank of the slaves, the Iron Guts finishing their business with the Doom Wheel, and a single lead belcher that decides to go into the Hell Pit's flank as well. I think Sweet Lovin is actually just fine with that. The Mornfang move and the Iron Blaster move up for support on the next turn. His caster is dead, so there's no magic, and the shooting units are in combat, where the Iron Guts finish off the Doom Wheel and reform to face the slaves, since the overrun would have just missed. Then in the big multi-combat, our unit champions challenge each other and get the total pillow fight. Probably the only time a slave will ever survive a challenge. Otherwise, I'm ASL again, so the Tyrant, the Ogre, and the Thunder Tusk get their attacks and stomps into the slaves for a total of 22 wounds. Then the slaves actually manage to finish off one of the bulls before Sweet Lovin decides to feed again. Damn it. He kills the Lead Belcher but fails to wound the Thunder Tusk, and with 14 models left for the slaves, they are 1 model shy of being steadfast, and they explode. Probably a good thing, since they actually do more damage in the explosion than they did alive. The Hell Pit finds the whole situation amusing and sticks around to see more. Time to get the Plague Furnace into combat. I have to charge it into the Thunder Tusk, and it makes the distance, even though I rolled a 4. I try to get one of the giant rats to block the flank, but they just don't have long enough legs to do any real good. This magic phase is 9 versus 9, and I use the first 3 to try and bring the bulls down to toughness 2, but he dispels it with 5 dice. The next 3 go for Bless with Filth on the Plague Monks, which gives them poison attacks. Then I try for Death Frenzy on the monks as well, but he gets an irresistible dispel. My only cannon shot goes after the Iron Blaster, and again I hit at strength 6 and fail to wound. I also cap off the Doom Rocket with a 14-inch shot, which is perfect for 4 dice, but I rolled a 10 and I only nick the unit and kill off 2. For the only combat, the Plague Furnace takes out the Thunder Tusk in impact hits and fog effect, so I don't get a chance to make the Wrecker attack. Sweet Lovin makes a smart move though, and decides to overrun out of the Mornfang's charge arc, while the Plague unit heads into the Ogres for the next round. Party time Furnace style, but not everyone gets to go. His Iron Guts are in the Plague unit's front arc, but there isn't any room to charge the front. But he is able to have his Tyrant charge out of the unit and hit the Plague Monks in the flank, while the Mornfang join in on the opposite side. Even though the combat is looking bad, we get the 5-minute warning for this round, so all they have to do is stay alive for a single round of combat. We kick off that final combat, and he doesn't even bother with the Plague Furnace, and focuses everything into the unit, trying to kill off all my rank and file models to capture the points. The Tyrant and Mornfang take out 7 just in impact hits. Then for normal attacks, the Ogre General adds 1 more, and I just roll my Plague Monk's attacks at the Tyrant, since it's the only thing I have a chance of taking out. I manage a single wound, but he saves it. Then the Ogre Bulls and Mournfang manage to kill off the remaining monks as Brian makes a statement about who's really in charge here. The Plague Furnace lives, but all the monks are gone even before the stomps happen. We go ahead and add up the points just to make sure, but as expected, the Ogres get the victory on this one. We both got some terrain features, and we killed off some casters as well, giving the final point total as 20-12. And even though I got the loss, I'm glad that the Plague Furnace survived, and I got some decent bonus points to boot. So that's my second round for this tournament. You can check out the third round here. Hope you enjoyed this battle report. Be sure and check back for more videos each week. Do me a favor and subscribe, like the video if you want to see more, and check it out on Facebook and Twitter as well. Leave a comment if you have any tactics or matchups you'd like to see, and until next time from Vidhammer, keep fighting.